Hi, everyone, and welcome back to PoducateMe, the ESL podcast that helps you learn English in a fun, meaningful, and practical way. My name is Hannah, and today's episode is a special one because we're sitting down with my incredible co host, Helen, and we're going to be talking about her language journey and her life journey, kind of, right? They kind of intertwine with each other.
Yeah.
And already have an idea of where I want to start. So I've heard this story before, and I thought that it would be like a fun place to talk about. So I want to ask you about when you first came to Canada. So when you landed here in Canada,
The airport story.
there's an airport story. So do you want to tell us about your airport story?
Sure. Hi, everyone. Very happy and excited to be here today to share my stories with you. And yeah, as we're talking about my language journey mainly, so here's one story from when I just came to Canada 8 years ago. I was traveling on my own. People were waiting for me here at the airport, but I was just fresh, not fresh. I wanted to say fresh from the airplane. No, not after 9 hours on the plane. I was not fresh.
The opposite of
The
fresh.
opposite of fresh. I was jet lagged. And of course, I was very nervous and excited and anxious about what's waiting for me in a new country, starting a new life here. So I'm talking to the immigration officer, and he asks me a bunch of questions like they normally do at the airport. And one of the questions he asks me was, when did you land? And I look him dead in the eye and I said, like an hour ago? And he looks at me confused. And I'm confused because he's confused and I don't understand what's happening. If I said something wrong or I didn't know what was happening. Later on, I did learn that when an immigration officer talks to you at the airport and they're asking you, when did you land? They don't want to know the time when your plane actually touched the ground. They want to know the date when you entered this country for the first time. So that was something that got me thinking that, like, I understood every single word in his question, but these little details that I
Mhm.
didn't know about, they threw me off. And it was a good lesson to learn.
And I love this story because it's like it really does show how language can always kind of be confusing or sometimes it can kind of trip you up, right? Because
Mhm.
like you said, you understood the question, you understood every single word in the question, the grammar, I guess, but the context
The
of where the
context.
question was being asked was what
Mhm.
mattered, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's really it's so interesting. Like
It
it's yeah,
is.
yeah.
And actually, you know what? Now that I'm thinking about it, of course, it wasn't my first airport ever in a different country other than my home country. But that was the first time I was asked that question.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Probably because you were like planning to stay here
exactly.
for
Because it
the
was
visa
like I
type.
had the immigrant visa type and
Yeah, yeah.
stuff. Yeah.
Awesome. I love that story. But okay, we're going to rewind a little bit. No, a
Sure.
lot. We're going to rewind a lot. So I want to, okay. So I want to ask you, like, what, how did your English journey begin? Like, how did you start learning English?
Whew, believe it or not, but I started learning the language when I was at a kindergarten or daycare, as it's called here. So I was like 5 or 6,
Hmm.
probably. And we had these English lessons that now that I'm thinking of, probably they weren't even like a part of the curriculum of the stuff that we had to learn at the daycare because the teacher that was coming to teach us, I don't think that she was even like the part of the regular stuff at a daycare. She was a very old and very sweet lady who actually lived in my neighborhood. And I very often saw her with, like a shopping bag on
Yeah.
wheels. And she would bring that shopping bag to our daycare with like a lot of toys and stuff that she would use to teach us some basic, not even phrases, but just words, alphabet, numbers, some, I don't know, animals and stuff. And we were just learning some poems some poems or some songs, I don't know, stuff like this. So it give me a lot of introduction to the language, maybe
Hmm.
just like the how the language sounds. And when I was a kid, I wasn't that much exposed to the English language because we didn't have a lot of TV shows or even music coming from the English speaking country.
Hmm.
So I didn't have like much exposure. So
Hmm.
that was my very, very first encounter
Yeah.
with the language. And then later on, I did have English classes, of course, at school, but unfortunately, they were not very structured. And we uh, did learn a lot of stuff. We did have a textbook, and but again, as I said, unfortunately, it wasn't very structured. There
Yeah.
wasn't like, here's the grammar class, grammar lesson, let's practice it. There weren't like a lot of drills. There wasn't the real life usage of a language.
I think that's really common. Like in when people are learning EFL, so like English as a foreign language in
Mhm.
another country, it's like you can learn things like you said, vocabulary, but you don't learn how to actually use it in real life settings, right? I
Yeah.
think that's really common.
It is, yeah, it is common.
Yeah.
It used to be very common back home
Yeah.
in Ukraine when I was growing up and then when I was going to school. And again, we had amazing teachers. I do remember all of them and have like a very special spot in my heart, in my English heart for them, English department of my
Your
heart.
English heart.
Yeah. English department of my heart. And but yeah, I guess that for the teachers, like the main thing was just like to go through the curriculum as
Hmm.
not like as fast as possible, but like within the given time frame that
Yeah.
they have to teach us certain things. So yeah, my English was non-existent
Yeah.
at that
That
time,
makes sense. So then,
unfortunately.
like, when did things get serious? When did you actually think about English and start seriously studying English?
I was at a high school. I was like 14, 15 probably,
Yeah.
and one beautiful spring day, my parents just sat me down and they told me that I have the summer that was coming, like 3 months ahead of me, to prepare for the entrance exams to the university where I'm going to be studying linguistics and foreign languages.
Oh, they just told you this.
Yeah, they just told me that. I mean, my parents are not tyrants,
Uh-huh.
okay? They're not tyrants, not what is the expression? The helicopter.
Helicopter
Yeah,
parents?
not the
Yeah.
helicopter parents. And I'm sure that if right now I were to call my mom and ask her how that happened, she would be like, Sweetie, of course we did ask you.
Of
Of
course.
course we did talk to you and we wanted to hear your opinion. But at that time, it probably felt like they just told me that,
Mm-hmm.
like, this is what you're going to be doing. And honestly, I was like, okay, whatever. Like,
Interesting.
I'll do it. So they did hire a tutor for me because, again, if you were following my story, I had like zero English. It was really bad. And when I came for the first class with the tutor, of course, she had to give me some tasks to like test the level of my English.
Like an initial language assessment
Yeah,
type
like
of
an
thing.
initial language assessment. And after I completed it, she looked at me and she was like, you want to do what? You want to go where? You want to study what? Because the university where I
Yeah.
was going to go, it was and still is like one of the most prestigious universities in Odessa for foreign languages studies and linguistics. And I was like, yeah, that's where I'm going. She was like, well, we have a lot of work ahead of us. And this is where my introduction to the actual language learning started because I had zero idea what present simple is.
Wow.
I had no idea about like all of the
Yeah.
tenses, about regular, irregular verbs. And of course, my vocabulary was very, very poor, very poor. So I had to work really hard on learning all that stuff, memorizing a lot of vocabulary. This is one of the things that actually helped me a lot is that I have a good memory. So I did memorize a lot of fancy vocabulary words. Again, I would probably at that time not be able to use them actively in my speech and in my communication. And also the thing helped that the entrance exam that I mentioned before, it was just the written part. You
Mm.
had to do it like as a kind of a test. There were a couple of multiple choice answers, like open the brackets, like open clause exercises, and of course there was some kind of like an essay writing or something.
Mhm.
So I did get in.
That's amazing. I mean, it just sounds like a lot of work.
It was a
And
lot of work.
and it's also, I mean, you only had the summer basically to prepare for this exam. And I feel like you would have maybe, or, a, an average person would maybe feel like, ugh, I never want to do this again type of thing. Like they maybe have a bad taste in their mouth about like the language or the learning, but I guess that didn't really happen to you.
It didn't happen to me because the tutor that my parents hired, Katerina Valerievna, hello. Just in case you're watching. She was amazing. And she was, so she chose the approach that helped me get interested in the language learning.
Mm,
And it wasn't frustrating for me. It
yeah.
was hard because I did realize I wanted to say the gap, but it wasn't the gap. It was like the chasm. Is there a word, right? The
Chasm?
chasm,
Yeah.
the chasm of the information and like the knowledge that I was missing about the language.
So it kind of like widen your horizons or your like image of the language.
It definitely did. I love how
Oh.
you put it
See,
this way.
this is why having a good, memorable teacher is so important, right? Like she made you like love the subject and love the language rather than and it's very possible that it could have gone the other way, right?
That is
So
true.
that's amazing.
Yeah, could have
Okay.
been me.
All right.
Yeah.
So you got in. Congratulations, by the way.
Thank you. Thank you. Long overdue, but
Long
thank you.
overdue. I'm sorry I didn't say it then. I didn't know you then, but congratulations. Okay, so you're studying. You got in. You're studying linguistics and language, the English language,
Yes.
right? And foreign languages.
Foreign
Okay.
languages because I also did study German and French,
Wow.
which I had like zero idea about.
So you were
Like
studying
nothing.
three
I
languages.
did study three languages at the
Wow.
universities.
Okay.
Yeah.
So then what happened? What happened after that?
The university was tough because this is where I started learning the mechanics of the language, like
Mm,
what's happening inside or in the backstage of the language, how the words actually connect together in a sentence, like syntax, semantics, pragmatics. I'm going to be throwing at you guys all of those fancy linguistic words that I've learned at the university.
mhm,
But the first year was really tough because the people that I studied with, this is actually my youth squad, as I still call them today because we're still in touch. Amazing group of girls. And they had much better level of English that I did. And I did feel that I was so behind. And on multiple occasions, I was very embarrassed because during the lectures, like most of the lectures, they were in English.
mhm,
And we did use a lot of conversational language. The teachers would ask us, like, about our, I don't know, summer jobs or whatever stuff. So I had to speak, but I couldn't speak as well as I can today.
mhm.
So I was just embarrassed where I had to say stuff like, "Oh, last summer I work in restaurant. I was a waiter. I worked with people." So like, even because if they asked me to write it down, I had some time to think and maybe like use the past tenses. But like in the moment of speaking, I didn't have enough practice
Mhm.
to do that. So I was embarrassed on multiple occasions.
This is so interesting because like I've only ever known you like at this level of English and you're like fluent, and I just can't picture you not being able to like being at a different level of English. Like it's so interesting. And that was like in university that you
It
were
was,
at that stage.
yeah,
So that's like,
not
yeah,
that very, I mean, long ago, but not like super very long ago.
yeah.
But yeah, it was really tough. It was
Oh,
really
okay.
tough. And yeah, also like learning the other two languages. But then again, I had a little advantage there because with my classmates, we were all like on the same level of the language, the German and French, that we
Mm-hmm.
started the German language and French. And my advantage was my memory that I mentioned before. So there I could like ace German, especially. Yeah.
I'm jealous of your memory. I I'm the opposite. I have a terrible memory, so I wish I had your memory. Okay, so then how did you get into like teaching English? Was that here in Canada or was that over there?
I was still back home. When I came to Canada, I actually brought already 10 years of teaching experience from Ukraine.
What?
So yeah, it all started back home in Ukraine. My last year of university, I was a part-time student for my last year at the university, and I had some time on hands. And I was like, why don't I go and look for a job? So I got a job at a local language school. It used to be a very small school. It's called Polyglot, High Polyglot, and all the polyglots. And actually, this year in April, the school celebrated 22 years, and
Wow.
10 of those years I was with the school. So,
So you were teaching before you even graduated.
yes, I was
Wow.
teaching even before I graduated. My English was much better by the time, I promise, because I got the job. I had a proper interview, and yeah, so I got the job, and I started teaching. And the fun stuff is that I've always wanted to be a teacher since I was a kid.
Mm.
I
Hmm.
guess, well, maybe for like my generation, a lot of girls, maybe boys too, like we were always playing school, like I'm gonna be the teacher, like this is your
Same.
homework, like
Yeah,
yeah.
similar experience.
Maybe that's why it stuck with me, but I really wanted to be a teacher. And when I was at school and when I was at university, I was, because we're not learning only from the best, sometimes we learn from the worst. And I was looking at my teachers at school, at university, and I was like, when I'm a teacher, this is how I'm not gonna be doing stuff.
Yeah.
This is not the way. Yeah. So I was taking those like mental notes,
Hmm.
probably even like subconsciously,
Oh yeah.
not even like thinking about
Yeah.
them. And then finally, I had the opportunity to bring all of that into the classroom, teaching people the language.
Oh.
And it was fun. I loved it like immediately. Like the teaching, I was like, you know what? This is like, I'm in the right place. I love it.
It was like I'm meant to be here.
I'm meant to be
This is
here.
my destiny.
Totally. Totally. Yeah. We had a joke with I worked with amazing people there at Polyglot, and we even had a, well, it's not a joke. It's something about like, what do you call the palm reading? It's not a science. Like
Psychics?
uh there is the whole, I don't want to say the word science, but is it a science? When you, it's like the palm reading thing. I'll
Mm-hmm.
Google it later.
Mm-hmm.
So one of my coworkers at that time, one day she came and she was like, you guys, you know what I've read about like this palm reading thing? You have, some people have on their palm, like right here in the corner, the square of a teacher.
Mm-hmm.
And so everybody started like looking at it. And I actually do have it. Like the square, like here, like, these like lines, like they form a square. And this thing is called the square of a teacher.
A
Like,
square. Okay, my hands are so
we'll,
dry right now and
we'll
I
take a
have a
look at
lot
it
of lines.
later.
So, yes.
Yeah, we'll take a look at it later.
Okay.
But apparently, so like I've been marked by like the universe
It's
because I do have a square of a
it's meant to
teacher.
be.
Exactly.
Oh,
Yeah.
awesome.
And so, yeah, I stayed at that school for 10 years. And the only reason why I left was because I was moving to Canada.
That's amazing. That's so cool that like the first job that you were as a teacher, you stayed at for so long.
I
10
did
years.
10 years.
Wow.
So
That's
many students, uh, so much stuff that I've learned because I always like saying that the level of English that I have today, I mean, of course, 8 years of living in Canada did shape my language for
hmm
sure,
hmm
but the conversational language that I have and like a lot of grammar and vocabulary, I did learn while teaching.
100%. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. You do end up learning a lot of the stuff as you're
Hmm.
teaching it, right?
Yeah, that is.
That's really important. I really like that. Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay, so you did the 10 years,
I
and then
did.
I guess you had to quit that job when you came to Canada.
Sorry, you made it sound like it was a sentence. So you did your 10 years.
Your 10-year sentence,
10
and
year
now that you're
sentence.
out.
Yeah.
But okay, so you did the 10 years in Ukraine and then you came to Canada.
Mhm.
And so like how did your language skills kind of hold up throughout that time?
Uh, I came very confident. I came very confident to Canada and being like, I
I
mean,
know everything.
it wasn't like I know everything. I wasn't that delulu that I know everything. But I came very confident, thinking that like my I'm very fluent. I spoken to English speaking native speakers, and we could have like a nice conversation. I was complimented on my language skills by the
Mhm.
native speakers, so I came very confident.
Mhm.
The first thing that happened, like you already know about the airport
The airport
story, where I was
story.
like, "What? Like, okay, maybe like." You know,
Lower your confidence
lower
just a
your
little bit,
confidence
especially
just a
that's your
notch.
first
Yeah,
experience.
yeah. And then I once I was like fully exposed to people speaking English everywhere around me.
Mhm.
Like everywhere, wherever you go, people speak English.
Yeah, you're just immersed.
I just immersed and I realized how much uh mm, okay, there were gaps, mainly in vocabulary and mainly in the local vocabulary.
Mhm.
Because, of course, like in Canada, there are certain expressions and things that are very particular to Canadian English.
Yeah,
And I'm sure that
like
we'll talk
slang.
about it like at some
Oh
point
yeah.
in
Oh
our
yeah.
episodes.
All the time.
So that was the thing that I didn't know. And also a lot of stuff about everyday objects that I would, for whatever reasons, like never come across while I was teaching the language. And the very good things, the very one of the first things probably that I remember was the things about like the hair elastic. I had no idea what to call it.
Oh, okay.
Like
What
the
did you
hair
think
elastic.
what did you think it was called? Or you didn't know?
I didn't know. I just was like, how come I never like I was at the beach and there
In
was a girl sitting next to me, like I knew her already, and I have long hair, and I didn't bring my hair elastic. Now I know what it's called, and I asked her like, "Do you have?" And in that moment, I'm like, "What is this thing called? Like a hair band? Like the hair rubber? Like what is it called?"
Hair
I had
rub.
no idea what it was called. Like such a simple word, and
Oh.
like having like being very fluent and having like a advanced vocabulary in my archives, I
Mhm.
didn't know that word. And sorry, and the other word was the q-tip.
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 Yeah, I mean technically it's one of those words. There's an expression, there's a word for it, but it's when we use the company name
Cotton
for the
swab.
object. Yeah,
It's
cotton
called
swab.
cotton
Yeah,
swab.
yeah, yeah. But nobody says cotton swab.
No,
Yeah.
nobody says cotton swab. I didn't even know that it's called cotton swab.
Okay.
Yeah, I didn't know about the q-tip. I know that it's a brand name,
Yeah.
same as like Xerox and some other
Kleenex. Yeah.
Kleenex. But I had like zero idea.
Yeah, I think that's stuff that you kind of pick up as you
Yeah.
are living right? Like just as you're living through the day-to-day life.
That is so true. So yeah, that was an eye opener that there were gaps in my vocabulary,
Hmm.
especially about like the everyday object, like so small as like hair elastic
And
and
probably like slang,
scotches.
right? Things that are
Oh,
local,
slang.
like not only local to Canada, but local to Toronto, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like just the things that we say, like we use a lot of, I don't know, like hockey references, for example, like
Hockey references, like the money thing about like loonies, toonies. I was like, okay, this is like a loony bin with you
a
guys and
loony,
your money.
a loony. This is a loony bin, is what it is. I really like that. Like it's just like no matter what, no matter how far you think that you've gone with the language, like
Hmm.
you'll always find gaps, right? Like even me as a native speaker, I sometimes a lot of the time can't think of the words or like I don't know a word or something like
Hmm.
that. Like you're always learning. You're
Yeah,
always learning the
there is
language.
always like a learning point and everything. And
Yeah.
it also helped me understand like about like to bring my confidence to the needed level
Yeah.
of being still confident speaking and accepting that there are things that I do not know,
And that it's okay.
that
Yeah.
it's okay. Because and also the thing why I came so confident, because of course back home in a country where English is not the first language, of course, my level of English was like high,
Yeah.
like super high,
Yeah.
if we take like the average population. And then when I came here, of course, like I'm talking to native
Yeah.
speakers, and I'm like, well, okay, Helen, now like let's just like,
Yeah. I really like that you told that story about the elastic band because
mm-hmm,
like I think a lot of people beat themselves up a lot for not knowing something or not
yeah,
being able to answer something properly and they get like low confidence with their language skills, but it's okay to not know everything,
yeah.
right? And situations like that is how you learn, right? And you still remember that little tiny sentence or that little tiny conversation that you had and you'll forever remember
Yeah, that
that
is
it's called
so
an
true.
elastic band, and
Yeah.
that's just so important. That's such an important message, I think, to
Yeah,
people.
and I at some point I also had to fight with this thing in my brain about being embarrassed to accept that you don't know, because like I'm an English teacher. But
Yes.
then at some point I realized like, guys, I'm an English teacher. I'm not a dictionary. I
Yeah.
cannot know everything.
Hmm.
And while teaching, like you're learning, so you taught me, thank you so much. Now I will be able to use this word and maybe teach somebody else.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Oh, I love it. I love it. Awesome. That's so great. I love the stories. I
Oh,
love the
thank
journey.
you.
It's
And I
amazing.
felt like it brought so many nice memories. So
Memories back.
yeah.
Aw, okay. Well, I'm gonna change the topic around a little bit. We're gonna be doing something called a quick fire round.
Okay.
Okay, so the quick fire round is I'm gonna ask you three questions that's related to English
Uh-huh.
or the language, and you're just gonna give me the answers that come from like the top of your head.
Awesome.
Okay? Are you
Let's
ready?
do it.
Okay.
Yes.
So my first question is, what is the most confusing English phrase you've ever heard?
Okay, there are so many, but the first
First thing.
one, yeah, the first one would be pull yourself together. I love this expression. I love it, but it is confusing,
Yeah.
especially when I heard it for the first time. I was like, what am I pulling? Where are we? What is
Pull
happening?
what?
Yeah, pull what? Pull where? But it is beautiful. Pull yourself together. And it's like, with the like, there is so much energy in it
Drama.
and drama. Yeah, like, pull yourself
Pull yourself
together.
together. Yeah, that's always what I think when I hear that expression. I feel like like you're in a movie and you're like shaking someone by the shoulders. You're like, pull yourself together, man. I love it. I love it. Okay, I
I'm
love that.
getting chased by the zombies. Pull yourself together.
All right, I love it. Next question. Favorite word in English?
Favorite word. Serendipity.
Oh,
I love it
yes.
so much.
It's
It gives me shivers.
it's such a pretty
It
word.
is.
And the meaning is so pretty too.
The meaning
I
is
love
so
it.
pretty. We'll talk about the meaning later. Yeah, so stay tuned.
Serendipity.
Yeah. It just like
Serendipitous.
it sounds so nice, like as if you're like I don't know, it sounds like maybe a spell, like a magic
Mm,
spell. Like
yeah.
Alahomora,
Mm,
serendipity.
that's a good word too.
Yeah.
Allahumora. Not English, but good. Okay, last question in the quick fire round. What is one tip you would give to every English learner out there?
um
Like something that you might tell your students.
Don't aim for perfect, aim for progress.
Ooh, I like that.
Yes, aim for progress and speak as much as possible. Speak English
Yeah.
as much as possible. Expose yourself to the language.
Yeah.
Listen and speak. Even if you don't have anyone to speak to, I don't know, record yourself.
Talk to yourself. That's what
Talk
I
to
do.
yourself. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's a great practice.
Yeah. I really like that. I like that advice. There's no such thing as perfect,
Yeah.
Like especially when it comes to language. Language is it's not a static thing. It's always evolving, it's
Mm-hmm.
always changing. So
Yeah.
you know, yeah, I really like that.
Even today, having very solid language skills, I'm still learning. Maybe not on daily basis, but whenever I read books in English or when I watch some shows
Hmm.
or when I speak to my colleagues or friends who are native speakers, I always learn some new words or new expressions or like even earlier today we had like a little grammar debacle about the usage of like possession apostrophe like s. When do we use it? We
Possessive
use like,
pronouns.
yeah, my or mine here. Hannah goes like, no, in this sentence it will be my. I'm like, why? And then so we typed like in this whole conversation
Yeah, yeah. Yeah,
out
yeah,
of
yeah.
nowhere. I was replying to my friend, like I was sending a text message.
Mm.
So yeah, it's always a learning
Uh,
point
I love
about
it. I
this.
love it.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Helen, for sharing your story. It's like it's so inspiring, and there's a lot of parts to it that I actually didn't know. So that's like it's been really fun learning about you and learning about the
Oh.
challenges. And I again, my big takeaway is I wish I had your memory. I'm really jealous of that. I really wish I had that memory. But I think it's really real. It's funny. There's a lot of ups and downs, bumps and things. So that's
Yeah,
yeah.
what a journey. Thank you so much, Hannah, for having me and for letting me spill all my language secrets here. But yeah, it was nice. Like, it's such a nice uh, walk
Walk
down
down
the
memory lane.
memory lane. Yeah.
Yeah.
And thank you. It was tough at times and
Mhm.
bumpy, as you said, but yeah, it's uh, it's a work in progress always.
Of course,
Yeah.
always. And for the listeners out there, don't forget to tune in later on this week for our language lab episode. So we're going to be breaking down some of the expressions that maybe both of us or one
Mm-hmm.
of us use today. Things like I think the "When did you land?" question might be
Mm-hmm.
interesting. Pull yourself together, serendipity, these
Serendipity.
types of things, and a lot more. So please tune in.
Yeah, and we will also have a quick quiz for you guys to practice the vocabulary and the expressions that we're going to be breaking down. And yeah, so you can use them in real life, even
Yes.
maybe while you're sending us an email or a
Please
comment.
do. Please do. Don't forget to follow us on Instagram at PoducateMe and tell us about maybe your most confusing English moment. I think we might even feature these comments in a future episode. That would be really fun.
Yeah, awesome. So until next time, keep listening, keep learning, and
Educate
educate
yourself.
yourself.